Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas, with Angelica Cázares, Carolina Arenas, Diana Ruby, Jacqueline Villa Gomez, and Sonia Ramirez. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
So hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Carolina Arenas, and I'll be your co-host for today here at the Latina Leadership Podcast. I am excited once again to bring you another powerful Latina this month. Ms. Diana Gomez is a trial attorney with extensive experience in civil lawsuits in state and federal courts, focusing on complex labor and employment disputes by providing a full range of employment law services to her clients, from pre-termination counseling, investigations, EEO training, handbook review, and much more that she'll share with us. But most importantly, Ms. Diana Gomez is the first Latina president of the Houston Bar Association, sixth woman to serve as HBA president in the organization's 153-year history. Welcome, Ms. Gomez.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And again, that was a lot to say. So I will let you share with us a little about your experience or your journey to becoming a lawyer. I think that's where we like to begin sometimes. And most importantly, just a little bit about your background. Where are you from?
Well, so I'm originally from Brownsville, Texas, which is the last city before you reach Mexico and Texas. And I moved in second grade to Katy, Texas, kind of on the outskirts of Houston. I have a sister who is 11 months older than me and a brother who is Melissa and a brother who's 12 years younger than me, Javier.
So you're the middle child.
I'm a middle child, and I'm married to the love of my life, Michael Gomez, and we have two kids, Matthew, who is 12 now, and Alina, who is 8 years old. And in terms of what started me in the law, it started in Brownsville as a young child. My grandmother's, who was very close to Angelita de la Cruz, her house was really close to the border, and there was a situation where an eminent domain action where the government is trying to take over or buy out her property. And I just remember seeing how helpless she felt. She didn't know any attorneys. She didn't have anyone to help her. And so it was a very young age for me where I said, okay, I'm going to be an attorney, and I'm going to make sure my family is never in that position where we can't either help or find someone who can help. And that's kind of what started me on the path with the law. Really self-preservation and taking care of our family.
And then, so as a middle child, did you feel that you had that role of helping your family? Were you first generation or?
No, we're not first generation. I don't know the full history, but I think we may have been there. Our family may have been there before Texas was United States, when it was still part of Mexico. No, but I think the idea of taking care of our family, of service, that's something that's predominant in the Hispanic culture, as many other cultures. But I've seen that firsthand with my parents and the sacrifices they did. They got married very young, and they're still happily married. But it took a lot of work, and family always came first, and so that was ingrained in me as a very, very young child, and on my brother and sister as well, everybody.
So you were mentioning again that you were raised in the border, and did that help or encourage you to become a lawyer?
Yes, being on the border and seeing firsthand kind of the struggles people have, even within my own family, of navigating the legal system, kind of as a very young child, influenced me greatly. I was telling you earlier about my grandmother who was facing an eminent domain action, and just seeing her struggle to find someone who was going to be able to help her figure out what form she needed to do, who to speak with. I just decided at a very young age that I was going to be in a position to make sure that I either was able to help my family or I knew somebody and it could help my family with issues like that.
So how did because I know you said you lived in the border, and then as a little child your family moved to Katy. So that's a big difference too, right? It's like what we call like the burbs, and now you're in the bigger city, right? So
Yeah.
how was that? Did you feel a hard transition in doing that, or did you see like your family struggling with that?
Yeah. So what's funny is, yes, I think I've had some of these big transitions from Brownsville, which is predominantly Hispanic. I mean, very high percentage Hispanic, to Katy, which at the time, it's not that way anymore, but at the time was not predominantly Hispanic at all, predominantly Caucasian. And then I went from Katy to Texas A&M University, also not at that time,
Wow.
not incredibly diverse, and then to UT, which was a mix of all sorts of, in Austin, our capital, mix of all sorts of different cultures. And so I had a chance to kind of see very different uh, environments and learn to adapt in each of those environments. And so yes, there was some struggles. I remember being in Katy, and there was a emphasis to not speak Spanish at the time. And so a lot of my friends, my family and friends were told, don't speak Spanish. They took us out of bilingual classes. And so there was a lot of that now we think is highly beneficial, right? And so it's just the way that everything's changed, to see an appreciation of being
And
bilingual.
I'm actually glad you bring that up because so myself being up from up north and then moving here to Houston 11 years ago, a lot of my coworkers were older, in their 50s, 60s, and they would tell me that. They were like, hey, I'm Mexican or Salvadorian, but we were told not to speak Spanish when we were going to school. And it's very important to understand geographically, right, where Texas is and its history to understand our community of Latinos that do not speak the language. And so I think that's very important. I want to thank you for sharing that. But with that being said, are you the only lawyer in your family?
Yes, I am. I have a I have a second or third cousin who's a lawyer in
No, but
Austin.
what I'm trying to, immediate in the sense that did you have someone to look up to during that educational trajectory into leading into law school? You know what I'm saying? Like your high school, your college. Like how did that trajectory look for you?
Well, that's a great question. I think my my father he's had many careers. He's been in the Air Force. He's been a paramedic. He's got his master's in public health.
Nice.
He's worked with NASA. I mean, he's just got this incredible story along the lines of these really amazing, and my mom too, both just amazing in terms of education. And I think we are the example of, if you work hard and you study hard, you can be successful. You can change circumstances of a family in a generation.
Hmm.
And I think that we're a good example of that. But I bring that up because my dad actually had gone looked into a legal career. He ended up doing a public health career. Um, but I didn't have an immediate, this is who you go interview with, or this is the type of job that you want to do, or these are, I'll never forget. I think the first time I went for an interview for a job, for an actual law job as a law student, going to go work as an attorney. And I remember going and telling my parents, well, I think I'm going to ask for this amount of money. And my mom and dad were like, what? You've never really worked outside of like Randall's and daycare and taking care, but you've never really, that's too much money. You shouldn't ask for that. I mean, you just been to school. What are it was kind of like,
Yeah.
I feel like, what? And it ended up, I lowballed myself significantly because I just didn't have someone to say, look, you've paid your dues, you've gone through school, you've taken the bar, this is what the average salary is, and this is what you should be asking for. I mean, my employers were great. They ended up giving me a huge raise at the end of the year because they're like, hey, you're doing a great job. But it's those little things where, especially in our culture, I think in my experiences, we're hesitant sometimes to say, look, this is what somebody in this role gets. That's what we should get to.
Hmm.
And fighting for that. And I think even women too, sometimes we have a harder time asking for those things. And there was a piece of advice someone gave me a long time ago that, look, if you want to ask for a raise, or if you want to ask for promotion, and you have a hard time doing it for you, think about, you're doing it for your family. And that doesn't mean just, if you're married and have kids, like your family, because you are successful, you grow, then you can help others. because I think we do have we're very focused on our family. And if you look at it that way, it's like what you're doing doesn't just help you, it helps your family. That can kind of give you the incentive, that push that you need to say, hey, I deserve a promotion. I deserve a raise. This is why.
No, yeah, of course. And like you said, it's something that helps your immediate family, and then it even connects to bigger, right? Your community, the
Mhm.
place that you live in. So yeah, that's great advice, and thank you for sharing that. And then, so again, you decided to go to law school. You completed it. What was your desired, I guess, law degree, right? Because there's a whole bunch of laws that you can
Oh,
practice, opposed to where you ended up, or did everything line up correctly for you?
I get that question a little bit. It was interesting. In law school, I thought I wanted to work in the district attorney's office. I thought I was going to be either a contracts lawyer or district attorney's office. And I had the opportunity to work at the Travis County District Attorney's Office for a semester and got class credit for it. And I worked specifically in domestic violence and child abuse area. It was so hard. It was very hard. And I honestly, God bless the people that do that, because it is not an easy role and it takes someone very special to do that. I had a really hard time, and I was like, I would go home crying every night if I if I
Yeah,
had to,
yeah,
if
yeah.
I did this every day, because it's just, we see the best and the worst sometimes, and that was really hard. So I didn't end up going that criminal route, and I tried a bunch of different types of law. So when you graduate, you don't have to specify, I want to do this kind of law. It's just a law license. But I did try family law. I tried just general litigation. I even tried, defending doctors. And I found the perfect area of law for me was employment law. And I love it. We are, every day I learn something or I help somebody on a practical level, right? And so everyone has questions about employment law, what can or can't happen in the workforce, everybody. And so I feel like I've got in my toolkit things that can help not just my family but people at large. And it's never a dull moment. There's always interesting things that happen in the employment law world, and so I absolutely love it.
So, what would be, or what do you feel is the most challenging thing about like your law school experience? Because I
I
know
think
a lot of people out there that are interested in law, right? Like sometimes it can be a financial discouragement, right? Because it's expensive. But then
mm,
I've heard a lot of them just, I guess it's a lot, right? Like you go to law school, then you
it
have to take your
is.
LSAT. I know a lot of people that have taken it two, three times, and they don't pass it. So I guess where I'm going at is, were there any challenges that you faced, and what would you recommend for the people facing those challenges? Like, what should they do, or what resources do you think would be helpful for them?
So I'm going to preface this with, it's been about 20 years since I was in law school, so it's
A
been a
lot of
little,
things
yeah.
change, yeah.
I mean,
That's
we
true.
did handwritten tests, which I think is not a thing anymore.
Probably not.
But I think when you're going to law school, I think you just have to remember that everybody is struggling at some point, and it's okay. It's okay to know that. Just if you got there and you're at that position, you're going to do what you need to do, and just keep that in mind. That whatever it takes, you will find a way to do it, because you found a way to get this far. You're in a law school now, and you can do it. And I always tell people, give yourself a little grace. And I say that today in my practice now. I tell that to people all the time. Give people grace. Your life will be so much better for it. I joke around. I was joking with a friend of mine, because she was in my car and we were driving somewhere, and my one of my kids, this guy cuts me off on the road, which tends to happen in Houston sometimes. Can
Oh
happen.
yeah.
Cuts me off on the road, and I can't remember if it was my son or daughter that said, "Oh, they're on their way to have a baby." And my friend looked at me. I was laughing. I was like, "Yeah, my kids, they think everybody in Houston's having a baby." And the reason why they said that was, when I have people who cut me off on the highway or they do whatever, I, for my own benefit, tell myself they must be rushing to the hospital to have a baby. That's the only reason that they would cut me off and like drive
I
crazy.
think I'll start using that sentence for myself to calm myself down.
And so now my kids all the time talk about, like, oh, those people must be having a baby. And I'm
That's
sure
a
it's
good one.
funny when people hear that. But I mean, I tell people, I've said this a few times recently. I've spoken to a few law students this past year, and I tell them the story is when I was a young first year out attorney, I think. I was super excited and really pumped up, and I had an opposing attorney who didn't do what they were supposed to do in a case. And so I tried to call them multiple times and they didn't answer. They still wouldn't do what they needed to do. So I go in front of the judge and I asked for what's called sanctions, which is I want a specific amount of money to have to come down here because so and so is not doing what they're supposed to do. And the court granted it and so the attorney sent me over a check for this amount of money. And I remember walking into my partner's office and being, look, I won the hearing and I got the settlement check. And I just remember the look on her face was like, I can't believe you did that. She took it. She called the opposing attorney, apologized, and said, we will be sending you back this check, or she ripped it up. I can't remember. She either tore it up, threw it away, or said, I'm going to send it back to you, and hung up the phone. I left her office, and later she came in and she said, you know why I did that? And she said it was karma. Like, it's bad to put out bad karma out there.
Oh.
But essentially what she said, and this has stuck with me to this day, is you never know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know if he's having a family issue, or if it's an issue with his client, or if, he just didn't get those phone calls or he didn't get those emails. So put that out there and give people that grace. You never know when that'll come back around, right? And so I've kind of lived by that to the extent that I can. Now, it doesn't mean you get bullied or let people push you around, nothing
No,
like
no,
that.
no, no. But yeah, your first
Mm-hmm. Your
benefit of the
first,
doubt, right? Until they let you down.
there you go. That's exactly what I tell people. It's the give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's not only with just opposing attorneys, but people you work with. If you give people benefit of the doubt, you get an email and you don't automatically say, oh, here they are attacking me or whatever. If you
Yeah,
see it in giving them benefit of the doubt that they're trying to help you or whatever, life is just, in my experience, life is just easier that way.
that's true. And talking about again the things that a lawyer should, a student lawyer, is there a skill that you think is important for lawyers to have?
Working hard and never saying no. So I think there's you may not always find the answer right away, but don't give up. Don't give up and just continue to work hard. And I forget what was the second thing I just told you. Oh, never
The
say no.
benefit of the doubt and say
Yeah,
no.
never say no. Again, same attorney, my partner that I work for, encouraged me never say no, right? You can be scared. There's a new situation. You may not be familiar with this piece of work or this area of law or the subject matter at school. Don't say no because you're afraid. Just do it. You will figure it out. You will do the best that you can. But if you don't do it, then you won't get these experiences that will help build you in your legal career, that will help you in your practice. I remember coming out of, again, in my first year of law school, so much happens in your first year. It was in the first or second year. I got asked by the Houston Bar Association, which I'm now president of, I got asked to do an ethics presentation, continuing legal education. Lawyers have to take classes to keep up with the laws and different things. And it was going to be at this huge event center, huge, like 300, 400 attorneys. And I was a first year. And these attorneys with much more years of experience. I was scared to death. I
I
remember
think anyone would be.
I was like, I am in no place to tell these people about ethics or whatever. I haven't been practicing that long. And I remember talking to that partner and her telling me, like, don't say no, go do it. You'll figure it out. And I did. And I will say, I think, I worked hard. I remember staying up all night for like a week, getting the PowerPoint ready, getting all the stuff done. And I'm sure the older attorneys in there probably had a good laugh, like, wow, she's really diving deep on this ethics presentation. But I wanted to do a good job. And that kind of started my activity with the Houston Bar Association, right? They gave me that opportunity. It was important to them to show diversity, both in practice, gender, ethnicity. And that always stuck with me. They gave me that. It was an opportunity. It was a little scary, but it was an opportunity. And that really kind of catapulted me working with the HBA until this day.
So it's an opportunity that, again, if you'd have said no, who
Right.
knows, right, where that transition would have happened. But with that, I guess that's a great way to lead now into, right, it's an honor to say you're the first Latina president, right, of the Houston Bar Association.
Yes.
But I feel that there's also pros and cons, right? Like we're in 2023 saying the
Mm.
first Latina. How do you feel about having that position?
Yeah. I mean, like I'm proud. I'm proud of it, and I'll say it's not an there it's a long road, right? So you have to have chaired certain committees, certain sections, and we're huge. We're the oldest bar association in Texas, I think, older than even the state bar. And we're the biggest in Houston, and Houston is obviously the biggest city in Texas. It did take us a while, and that gets brought up a good bit with me. I know I was speaking with the ABA president. She was African American, and I was like, "Oh, are you the first African American of the ABA?" And she was like, "No." I was like, "Oh." She was like, "Are you going to be the first minority woman of the HBA?" I was like, "Yes." And I just did a CLE with the first Latina of the Austin bar, and the first Latina of the Dallas bar, and they were both ahead of me. Now, it's been within the past 5 years. We all somehow this happened where we got the first Latinas in all these major cities in Texas. It did take a long time, but I think part of it is there's a lot that comes into that role. You have to have volunteered. You have to have, I was on the board for the Houston Bar Association, I think close to 10 years, 8 or 9, 10 years. And
Oh,
it's a whole
wow.
progression. You go to secretary, then to treasurer, then first vice president, then president elect, and then president. It's a long process. So you really have to um, want to do the role, not just the title. And I think that's important. It's not about getting the title, it's about doing the job itself, doing the role itself, and you've got to want it. And I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm all about the Houston Bar Association, so I was super happy and excited when I became president.
Well, again, congratulations. I know that's a big responsibility. For those that don't know, what is a bar association, right? And why is it so important? Or why are they important?
So the bar associations are the groups, they're attorney groups, right? And everyone has different missions, but most of them center around supporting the legal community, providing public services, giving better access to legal services, pro bono work, free legal services for the community, and then educating our members. And so the bar association, for me, and I think for our community is incredibly beneficial because it's an area, it's a place where all the judges, attorneys, coordinators, everybody can kind of get together and they know we're here, we have a purpose, and that purpose is to help our community, and not just the legal community but the community at large. um, and it's also great for networking for attorneys and for referrals for attorneys. For me, when I joined, I had there's a bunch of different organizations you can join as a lawyer. HBA is the biggest one here in Houston. And I joined the HBA for many reasons. I wanted to do pro bono services. There's also, we have like Special Olympics, Habitat for Humanity. There's all sorts. We have, I think, 33 committees and 28 sections, different areas of the law. It's huge. And then we have these huge ancillary groups, one that raises a fund to help with the pro bono, another one that provides free mediation for the public, another one that refers lawyers. It's massive. It's a massive organization. And for me, I wanted to go there because I knew the people I was going to interact with in my job, in my everyday job, were going to be in the HBA. And I wanted to get to know them outside of the courtroom because it's a lot harder to be, unprofessional or rude or whatever when you know the person on the other side. You know that they're an individual, they have a family, they're working hard just like you are, they're trying to do the best just like you are. It just helps. It doesn't only help you, it helps your clients. And so for me, that was kind of my reason I wanted to kind of join the Houston Bar, and it has helped me incredibly with my career.
That's amazing. And then as a president, then what is your role with the association?
I've said this before. I think the role is to guide the organization with that, to help them make sure that they're supporting the legal community. What can I do to help? Coming on programs like this, speaking at different events with the law students, doing what I can to get my face out there on behalf of the HBA and say, this is what we can offer you, and this is what what you can do to come help us for the attorneys there. And for me, it's been incredibly significant that I've been able to go to certain law schools, certain schools, talk to many young kids of Hispanic descent, primarily Hispanic descent, that are so excited to see me, and to see someone who looks like them that's
Mhm.
president of this big group. It is kind of funny though. Every now and then, some people have a hard time putting that together because it's never happened. We never had a minority woman as president. So um, some people have a hard time. They'll say, "Oh, are you president of the Hispanic Bar Association of Houston?" I was like, "No, I am a past president. I love
Yeah.
his, but it's where I met my husband, Judge Michael Gomez. Love him to death. But no, it's the Houston Bar Association. And so I do get a lot of that, like the Houston Bar, or is it the Houston Bar Foundation? Or I was like, no, it's the Houston Bar Association. And so, but that'll change. Once people start to recognize and see everything is going to change. Houston is predominantly minority now.
Yeah.
The whole sea of the profession of in our community is changing. So I'm the first, but I will definitely not be the
No,
last.
no, no, no. That's not our goal. And have you seen any, like, what do the numbers look like? I mean, you don't have to have it, but do you see if there's like a decline, or is there an increase, right, of our Latino community going into this career?
Oh, I think there's definitely an increase for
Okay.
sure. And you can see that not just in the private practice, which is what I do, but in terms of in-house attorneys, the attorneys who represent corporations and companies that hire folks like me. They're becoming more diverse. They're becoming both in gender and race. And you know, people always say, well, how do you increase, how do you grow more diversity in the profession? Well, for my part of it as a private practitioner, I have to grow my business, right? If people send me work, I'm able to grow my business and hire additional people. Now, I don't, I hire the best, and I feel like I have the best, the attorneys. One of Leslie Tano I've worked with for over 12 years is amazing. I work with the best people, and it's not that I'm looking specifically for diversity or something like that, where I'm like, oh, I have to have a Hispanic woman, but it helps when you have someone who's diverse in a position to look at everybody and just hire the best and keep growing their book of business and growing the people. Diversity is important to me. And I think it's important to a lot of people, but that growing the diversity doesn't happen if you don't have the work in order to hire people to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Or like
Oh,
you said, right, the leaders looking like the people that are wanting to join the association and all of that, right?
yes. And so for here in Houston, according to the U.S. Census, Hispanics make up 44.6% of our population in Harris County. Um, but only 9% of active Harris County attorneys are Hispanic that are members of the Texas Bar. So I mean, there is a lot of work to do.
There is, but like you said, I think the more that our young, students see that there's other people making it and all the resources that I guess kids now have available to them, I think that number can increase, right? And then mentorship is important. So with that being said, are there any resources that you know of here in Houston that someone looking into this, into becoming a lawyer, or even, even paralegals too? I mean, they don't do law degrees, but their careers that are within the lawyer legal, I guess, career path, right? Like, what resources do you have in mind or have you used?
Well, so we at the HBA we have a lot of pipeline programs, and so those are programs that are either focused, and they start from elementary school, where we go and we read to elementary students for Constitution Day and Law Day, and they're getting interactions with an attorney, and they're seeing that opportunity is possible. Then we kind of have touch points along the way. We do things with high school students to provide them opportunities through our communities and schools program to work at law firms or the Harris County District Clerk's office or Harris County District Attorney's office. So they get that experience of a professional setting. We also promote services and programs like Crystal Ray here in Houston, where students get to go and work at a professional company or law firm or settings, and that also helps them. So we have one in the summer. There are ones that we promote during the school year, and then we also have another touch point when they're in law school, that also provides them with internship opportunities. And my firm in particular, we work with Crystal Ray. We all do all the different types of programs to kind of have those touch points. And it's a great way to kind of give advice to those that are up and coming, to say, this is what you look for. These are the classes that you should take if you're interested in this. These are the bar review courses that you should do. This is what you need to do when you're studying, or this is what's important in a case. And so all of those little touch points help to kind of increase and grow that pipeline of people who will hopefully become attorneys here.
And is there any, I don't know, like aspiring law students, right? What advice would you give them when taking the LSAT?
Oh goodness, the LSAT is tough. The
I keep
LSAT
talking about it because I went to school with a lot of people that.
the LSAT's tough. The bar is a little bit of a hazing, but which is the test you take after you finish law school. But the LSAT is tough, and depending on what law school you go to, there's some law schools that look at things like your essay, your LSAT, and your grades equally, or some that focus primarily on the LSAT. So don't stress out if you don't do amazing on the LSAT. It's okay. You can still get into a good law school. I remember so what I'll say is take a preparatory class. There's some people who think, I don't need to take a preparatory class. I can just wing it, or I'm very smart. I've done really good in school. If you have, great, but take the preparatory class just in case. Like, it doesn't hurt you to do it. And there's all sorts of organizations that will provide scholarships. So look into that will pay, because they're not cheap. They're expensive courses. But look into those programs and scholarships to take that preparatory course. But definitely take a preparatory course for the LSAT.
That's good advice. And again, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we should have part two of this because I have so many questions. So you mentioned you work with employment, you're in employment law, right?
Yes.
This is a Latina Leadership podcast. Many of our listeners and our audience are women that are either have big businesses, small businesses, or thinking into becoming business owners, or we all have family members, right, that work and we're employed. That being said, what is how does someone know that they need a lawyer when it comes to employment? So, like, from my vision, like from my background, I know there's union issues, there's hour pays, but I guess what I'm saying is how does one know, like, it's time for me to get a lawyer that's experienced in employment because of X, Y, and Z? And then I know this is a heavy question, but it's that one. And then for our family members or community members that, because of their legal status, are scared of reaching out to an employment lawyer. So those are two questions put together. I know it's a little heavy, but I don't want to let them go because it's important, I think, for you to share that with us as well.
That's great questions. So for the first one, and just as some background, I do defense employment law. So I primarily am representing employers, people who have businesses, and they usually know to call me because they either get a claim, someone's making a claim, or they filed a lawsuit against them, or something like that's come up. But every now and then, and I think this is great for people who are creating handbooks or starting a business, and they're growing it, and they're at this point where they need a handbook, they need employment agreements, different things like that. Training is very important. Training is huge, and I wish more employers would call us for training. You just go and you talk about the employment law so they know, and then you tell your managers, this is what's important to the company. Listen to this to make sure that it prevents these sorts of situations where people on the plaintiff side need to hire somebody. In terms of if you're an employee and you feel like you're have a serious enough of an issue that you need to reach out to somebody, a lot of times the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, the EEOC, and the Texas Workforce Commission, TWC, and they have their own office. They handle what are called complaints and charges, EEOC charges or TWC complaints. And their services and intake information that you can call to say, look, I feel X, Y, and Z is happening. I'm not sure if I have a claim or don't have a claim. And what they'll tell you is that service itself For many of the employment laws, you have to go through them before you can go to court. And the idea is it's more of an informal setting. I know it's a federal or a state government official that's looking into it, and people can get kind of scared about it. But they're really there to kind of help guide both the employer and the employee to reach some sort of resolution. And sometimes they'll say, okay, well, this is a wage case. You need to go to this office, not our offices. Or if you need to do something like that. And so that's probably the first step, to figure out, like, okay, do I need to get a lawyer? Is this a big enough issue that I need to speak with somebody? But there is a little bit of a misperception out there. And I think we see a lot of people Googling stuff online, and
Becoming their own lawyers, yeah.
yes, and throwing around words like, oh, this is harassment or this is discrimination, and not really, harassment discrimination is tied to an actual protected characteristic or protected activity. It's not like I have a mean boss, right? And that's not fair. We call them equal opportunity offenders, right? When you have someone
Yes.
who's not the kindest in their way that they speak with people, if they're doing it to everybody and it's not just the Hispanic woman, then it's probably not going to be discrimination unless there's something more to it. They're just,
Mm-hmm.
they need some coaching on how to talk with
Their
employees.
staff, yeah.
Right. And so there's a little bit of difference with that. But there are resources like the HBA has. We have what's called the Dispute Resolution Center. And I'm trying to think what the website is. But you can go there and it's a free mediation, right? So you go into a room. That doesn't mean it's binding. You just go and you speak with a third party who has no dog in the fight, as they say. And they say, okay, I'm listening to you. I'm going to listen to the other side. This is what I think would settle or bring a resolution to this conflict. And then you can say, yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree, but you're talking. I think a lot of issues I see come out of people not talking or feeling disrespected, right? Those are the two main ones. But I think when you get people in a room and they're talking with each other, a lot can be accomplished and resolved that way. And so the DRC is definitely one of those. Yeah.
So, for all of those that are listening in, or for our community, where or what information would you like to share with us about the HBA?
Yeah, so the HBA has a ton of services for our community. One of which is a free call with an attorney to speak about legal issues. It's called Legal Lines, or Consejos Legales for Spanish-speaking individuals, and that's powered through the Houston Volunteer Lawyers group. And if you have questions about it, or if you want to sign up to get that free legal advice, you can go to legalline@hba.org or call the number 713-228-0735. There's additional resources that can be found at legalhelphouston.org. And that's for that free legal advice and pro bono services too through Houston Volunteer Lawyers. We also have the Dispute Resolution Center. It's a nonprofit corporation sponsored by the Houston Bar Association and funded through the Harris County Courts. They provide free mediation services for the residents of Harris County. The DRC mediates over 2,800 disputes a year, from family, neighbor disputes, auto repairs, landlord, tenant, you name it. They are going to be there and able to help with mediations. There also is a monetary component, like you can't be over a certain amount of money sort of dispute. The Houston Law Referral Service Program provides referrals to over 200 private practice attorneys who've been screened and selected based on experience in specific areas of the law. And that's through HLRS. .org, I believe, is the website. And then if you're interested in having an attorney come speak to your school or your class, I highly encourage schools to reach out to our speaker bureau group. We provide Constitution and Law Day reading events where we can go and speak with students. And there's a ton. So www.hba.org is the best place to go to see all the different services that we can provide for the community.
Is there anything that you'd want to share from the HBA that's coming up, maybe for the community, or things that you're planning for?
There's so much. I'd suggest going. We always have
So they can go over on the website.
yes, go to www.hba.org. We have free legal lines where you can get an attorney on the phone and ask them legal questions, provided you meet a certain amount of income or below amount of income. We have pro bono services, opportunities. We have lawyer referral services. And then we always have community activities that we're doing. If you are a teacher or if you work at a school and you'd like the HBA to come speak, so an attorney comes speak to your class, you can go on and ask our speaker bureaus committee to do that. There's pretty much everything and anything that we can do. We have book fairs, book drives, dress for success, all these different things that we enjoy and love doing for the community. So please reach out.
No, we're definitely signing on to that website. Sign on to newsletters too, guys. And then one thing that we love to ask our guests, just to close out our conversation, is: do you consider yourself a leader? And if so, what makes you a leader?
I hope I'm a leader. I think a leader is someone who leads by example and understands that we are all in a service role. You can call yourself a leader and that's fine, but what does that mean? That means you are in the service of others. You're a leader because you're able to help somebody accomplish something, and you can bring and encourage others to help you with that. And you can't hesitate to help them if they need something. So it's a service role. And I think some people forget about that. It's not about the title. It's not about being the first, Latina. It's what can I do in this role to help my community, and to help the community at large. And that's what I'm focused on.
And is there anything that I've missed that you might want to share with us all?
No, I can't think of anything. I have tons of questions for you, but I've always, in terms of, I've been watching and listening to the podcast, and they're great. And so very excited about being on, and appreciate you having me.
No, thank you. And again, guys, remember the website. Check it out. Make sure to get free advice and make sure you utilize those resources that are there for you, right? But yeah, with that being said, gracias. Thank you very much, Ms. Diana Gomez, for joining us. And again, she's here. She's a resource, and just follow her.
Thanks, guys.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.